Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Media Talks TV. It's Tony J again. Checking in. I know it's been a minute. It's been a minute, almost a month actually, but I had to upgrade this channel a little bit, so I'm improving the specs. I'm improving opening titles, cards, intros, outros, everything. So I'm getting together. I'm getting it together. So bear with me. You know, um, on this channel we're gonna have different segments, and with those different segments, I'm hoping that you know I can get to a point where I'm organizing my content a little bit better so that I can convey my messages in a straightforward way and hopefully keep some of these videos a little bit more shorter for my audience members. Um, like I said, thank you for bearing with me and subscribing to Media Talks TV. And it's been wild. My last video hit 384 views, so I'm happy about that. But other than that, it's just about the message. And I didn't just create this channel just to, sit around just to collect views, but to just send a message, you know. So I have different topics that I'm going to be talking about, and I'm going to cut it into sections. So, one topic we're going to look at, I'm going to have like a show or a medium, and that medium is going to be about retrospectives. And retrospectives is basically talking about media in the sense of the last 20 or 30 years. So we talk about media culture. We talk about things that have happened in the media in the last 20 years. And, um, basically talk about what's going on, what was happening historically with media. So I'm going to be breaking down certain things. So I got an episode coming soon with that. Um, Also, we're going to talk about what's going on in the industry itself, the media industry itself. So I have a segment called The Industry. And the industry is basically talking about basically the media industry as it relates to radio, broadcast, um, different aspects of how the media business works on the inside. Hopefully, with that particular segment, I hope to get some more interviews and sit down and maybe talk with different people to try and open up some more dialogue, especially with talking about the media industry. So I'm going to be doing that and exploring that a little bit more with my content. And then, of course, see right here. Um, I'm always going to have, I'm still going to have media talks. And that's, even though that's my name of my channel, media talks is basically going to be a live stream show. So it's going to be maybe 1 to 2 hour live stream. Um, but I'm still going to be doing a short video segment of that. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. And I'm also going to have what is called Cine Talk. And basically that's talking about the movie industry, Hollywood, different movies that are coming out, movie reviews. Um, I'm going to be talking about all those types of content. So I feel like I got a grasp on where I want this channel to go, what I want to do with this channel, and understanding my content and making sure the audience that are tuned into my content knows that I'm very serious about these topics, and this is not just a hobby, this is a business. So some of these topics I talk about, they could be entertaining, but also at the end of the day, this is information. I'm interested in informing the public and entertaining the public as well. So, you know, I guess, I want to start this show off with my segment called Retrospectives. You know, it's this time of the year, it's November, getting a little bit closer to Thanksgiving. So, one of the things that's really profound about this time of the year for me personally, when I'm looking back and I'm thinking about how much has changed in the last 30 years, um, I guess I could say one of the things that makes me the most happiest, especially about YouTube itself, is that you get a chance to look back at really some very old commercials, old shows, old television. And that's one of my things that I'm very happy YouTube has a medium for. Kind of like works like your virtual time machine in a sense. I have looked at several commercials. One of my favorite things to watch on YouTube is I guess 90s commercials. I don't know if people think about this. It's kind of profound how much the world has changed from what has happened 20 years ago versus now that we're in the streaming era. And what's interesting is that television didn't really work the way that we thought it would work. If you missed something, you just missed it. Nowadays, you could pause it, rewind it, well, not just record it anymore, but really save it on a DVR. But what's so great about YouTube is that when you have commercials from, say, maybe 25, 30 years ago, you could actually rip those off of the internet and burn them to the disk. And that's something I've done probably in the last 13 years since I've had a YouTube account. I have several um 90s commercials, and I kind of split it up in the campaign. I'm kind of like a hobbyist in a sense. I'm an archivist. So what's important about media archives is that they save chunks of media history, because most people, you know, what's so beautiful is so many people have recorded something on TV at some point. in that decade. So people got VHSs and high 8 tapes in their basement, in their house, in their closet. And what's interesting about that is that you're basically setting on a piece of gold so valuable, and people don't even understand that. If you have VHS tapes in your house right now, I want you to go through them, look at it, try and get a VCR, one that doesn't chew up your tapes. Let's make that very clear. Try to convert those tapes digitally and then upload them to YouTube. And what you're going to see is people are going to reminisce and think about, oh, I saw that commercial years ago. Oh, I remember that commercial years ago. And one of the things that's so profound about that is you don't know who might have saved what, who might have recorded anything. And that's a beautiful thing about YouTube. I just got several episodes of Rap City in the early 90s on BET. Most of the time you can't find that anywhere else. Um you can't find Video LP. You can't find Teen Summit anywhere. You might find clips of Teen Summit and Video LP online if you're one of those avid BET watchers. But you know what's interesting is that somebody saved the piece of history, and that's what the point about what's so interesting about media archivist. You know, what you might not remember, somebody else will remember it and have it recorded. And I guess for me, it's kind of like a heaven sent because I can now put these things on DVD and I could watch them. And the most relaxing thing, especially around the holidays, is when you could sit back and watch old commercials from your own era that you grew up in and just reminisce. And it's probably the most relaxing thing that I've ever done. To sit back. I had old commercials that I saved over from Cartoon Network. Cartoon Network is no longer a thing anymore. They're out of business. There is no such thing as Cartoon Network anymore. And that's a crazy thing for me to say, being that I grew up on it. That Cartoon Network is gone. Because I remember the first time I had Cartoon Network. I remember also the first time I had cable in my house and how important that was. And, you know, growing up, I had TCI cable. So we had Cartoon Network, and I remember very vividly how good Cartoon Network was. And I went back on YouTube and I looked for the commercial that had the Cartoon Network cartoon rap. And I don't know if you remember that. If you remember that, you know what era you were from. But one of the things that I personally love about Cartoon Network growing up was the interstitials and the bumpers. And what's so good about the interstitials is that, you know, interstitials are basically call letters of what represents a network. So when you think about, you know, Cartoon Network, that was the checkerboard era. So I remember the checkerboard era. And I remember anytime they would cut to a commercial break in between cartoons. So say for instance, you might be watching Flintstones, and then they had cut to a interstitial, and they have Cartoon Network, the checkerboard, and those checkerboards meant something. Logos are everything in broadcasting, especially for cable, since it was still owned by Turner Broadcast. So to have that, in the beginning was great. It was an amazing feeling. Then looking back on it, it felt soothing to watch that. It felt great to watch that those commercials in between. And I decided right then and there, I said I'm going to burn these on disc because I know, you know, Cartoon Network is about to be 30 years old and it's been on for a long time. And something just compelled me one summer to just compile a whole bunch of Cartoon Network commercials from 1992 all the way up to the Adult Swim era. And now that I'm in my 30s and I like looking at stuff like that. So I guess one of the things that's so compelling when you collect media is it just takes you back to a time and it's soothing. It's mentally soothing, actually, when you think about it, because you remember where you were when that happened. You remember what it was like to be a child in that era. And usually during November and December, for me, I look back and I reflect. And I like watching 90s commercials because they're relaxing and they're soothing. Sometimes we all need that escape from the current media atmosphere that we currently have right now. Because if you look at the current media atmosphere, you think about it today, it's just a bunch of chaos, bunch of reality TV, um, love and hip hop commercial, ATL homicide. This the list goes on, and then there's CNN with the political pundits, and nobody wants to keep seeing that shit all the time. It's stressful. Who the hell wants to see it? Would you want to see it? I sure as hell wouldn't, because it's just not soothing to the mind. And I kind of realize the current media landscape that we're living in today, it's just bent on a whole bunch of chaos and a whole bunch of confusion and diversion and arguing and going back and forth, and you know and I had to shut the TV off sometimes, and I don't feel like getting into that bullshit anymore. That's one of the primary reasons why I like watching 90s cartoons, commercials, and I feel like, it took me a while to collect all those commercials because it helped me to understand the era in which I was growing up in. I didn't miss a day of Cartoon Network. and now to see how it's evolved the last 20 or 30 years and where it is now, it's non-existent now. Like I said, we don't live in a cable era anymore. Cable was more controlled. They controlled the content. You wake up one morning, you go to sleep, you wake up the next morning, you might watch Captain Planet, or you might watch Cartoon Planet on TBS. That was cable. Cable was more contrite, controlled, more managed. This era, however, is it doesn't feel like when you think about it, just think about it for a second. I'm talking to people that grew up in my era when Cartoon Network was around, when Nickelodeon was around. When you turn on the TV, it's nothing like what we were growing up seeing in the last 2 decades. You could watch Flintstones on Pluto TV. You can watch the Jetsons on Pluto TV. You watch Garfield and Friends on Pluto TV or Tubi. But it's never going to feel the same like it did during the broadcast era. You get what I'm saying? During the cable era. Because in cable, the best thing about cable is when they cut to the commercial breaks. You know, and the one thing I understood, and when I was collecting, when I was collecting these commercials, especially online, I was able to understand the media business, especially with Cartoon Network. Because when you're a child, you don't understand what's going on with the commercials, right? And so much jewels was in those commercials, and I loved every minute of watching that shit. You know, I didn't know that when it comes to media business, and I learned this from just watching those, like I said, watching those commercials. You don't realize when you're watching those commercials how much the promotional aspect is tied up in the media business. If you ever watch Cartoon Network late at night, they would show Sports Illustrated commercials. They would show Time Life commercials. They would show Atlanta Braves commercials. And then what they would do, which is a tricky thing, is Ted Turner would cross promote his other channels on Cartoon Network. So what's so profound about that? I was like, yo, I didn't know he owned CNN. Because then I started seeing Larry King Live commercials, headline news commercials. And it's 1 a.m. in the morning when I should have been asleep. Ted Turner would cross promote his other channels. So if you're watching Cartoon Network, then you might see an announcement for an Atlanta Braves game. He owns the Atlanta Braves. Didn't know that. Didn't know this shit. I would see Larry King Live commercials. This was in 1998. Larry King Live. I never watched one episode of Larry King Live until I was in college. And Larry King Live was promoted on Cartoon Network. It's just funny, like he would, and then he would do, um, I think dinner in a movie. Dinner in a movie was something that was a thing on TBS, and they would show that commercial. He would cross promote for TBS and TNT and Turner Classic Movies. Now I would see Turner Classic Movies being promoted on there. And I love, and the thing about it is I love the Turner Classic Movies commercials. I love every last minute of it. Like it was so many TCM commercials in between it. So like when you watch Cartoon Network, it opens you up to a whole new global aspect of cable that you never thought existed. And that's what's so profound about Cartoon Network. You could be watching kids shows and he would, Ted Turner would jam in other promotions for his other channels. And I didn't know all of these channels were connected to one man. Like this one man had global dominance over the whole entire cable industry. It's HBO, TNT, TBS, Turner Broadcasting. And then what followed behind that was his channels because he had close to maybe 3 to 4 channels, I believe. It's of course Cartoon Network, TBS, TNT, Turner Classic Movies, CNN, and Headline News. So he had about six channels. All of them were interconnected, and you don't know, you don't think about this until you get older. But that's what watching those commercials kind of revealed to me, if you don't understand. But yeah, you know, around this time, people watching Christmas movies, people are breaking out Christmas movies. I would just like to watch the 90s commercials because it just brings me back to a better time period. And that's what I enjoy the most. Sit back, relax, come home from work, watch my favorite commercials and just be quiet and just reminisce. I encourage y'all to do that. Try to find something that gives you a sense of resolve and peace. Because at this point in the world right now that we're currently living in, I don't think you can get it just turning on regular TV and Netflix. I feel like the streaming era is kind of taking the fun out of watching TV in a lot of ways. Yeah, I could watch all my favorite cartoons. I could watch all my, but it's never, I could watch all my favorite movies, but it's never going to feel like cable. Cable feels different. Cable feels like home. And that's one of the things that, you know, and that's a retrospective that I really wanted to bring to you guys. Cable ain't nothing like the coax. Ain't nothing like cable. Wasn't nothing like cable TV. Just to flip through the different stations, channels. And then you had what's so good about cable was you had all of this, all of these options. You had educational channels. I could be home sick as a dog. I like the most about being sick in bed was the fact that I had the History Channel and the Learning Channel. Now, you don't have that. It's kind of crazy. It's a different feeling from, you know, having a Roku or having a bunch of apps. When they show commercials, you can skip them. They show you commercials on TV. You have no choice but to watch them. And that's a feeling that I long for even today. You could say, streaming is the new thing, but I prefer cable. Cable was much more fun. But this has been a segment of retrospectives. I'm gonna come back with another retrospective soon. This has been a Media Talks TV special. I look forward to another video coming back on this channel again, coming back on this network. But you know, I look forward to this break, to this holiday. So go out there, get on YouTube. You're 80s baby, watch some 80s commercials. You're 90s baby, watch some 90s commercials. It's one of the most relaxing things you could ever do. Live your life like it's cable. I'm Tony J, and I'm out.